She wasn't born into elegance. She was born into absence. No wealth, no protection, no family name that opened doors, just silence, poverty, and a childhood shaped by loss. An orphanage didn't teach softness. It taught survival. It taught discipline, cold rooms, hard rules, and the constant reminder that society had already decided what she was worth. Nothing. She grew up surrounded by class, not the kind you inherit, the kind that rejects you. She watched rich women wear cages of fabric and call it beauty. She watched men decide what women should look like and what women should accept. And she decided one thing early: she would not be invisible. Not as a poor girl, not as an orphan, not as a woman expected to obey. They mocked her origins, they dismissed her ambition, they copied her ideas and pretended she never existed. But Coco Chanel didn't build a brand to be admired. She built it to rewrite the world that tried to erase her. This is not a story about fashion. It's a story about power disguised as style. This is the story of Coco Chanel. The orphanage didn't give her dreams. It gave her rules, uniforms, silence, needles and thread. She learned to sew before she learned to belong. Every stitch was repetition. Every mistake was punished. Every day was the same. Cold walls, strict discipline, and the feeling that love was something other people received. But inside that routine, she learned something dangerous: control. When you can't control your childhood, you start controlling details. Fabric, shape, lines, how something falls on the body. Small control becomes survival. When she left the orphanage, she entered a world that didn't welcome her. Society didn't see potential. It saw class. A poor girl was supposed to stay poor. A woman without family was supposed to stay quiet. She worked where she could. Small jobs, modest rooms, barely enough to breathe. And everywhere she went, she felt the same message: you are not one of us. But rejection doesn't always break people. Sometimes it sharpens them. She watched wealthy women wrapped in heavy dresses, corsets, and decoration, clothing designed to impress men, not to free women. She saw beauty built like a prison, and she began to hate it. Not the elegance, the obedience. Because fashion wasn't just fabric, it was hierarchy. It was a system that reminded women where they were allowed to stand. And Coco Chanel decided she would not stand where she was placed. She entered high society the way an outsider always does, quietly, carefully, watching everything. She wasn't invited because she belonged. She was invited because she was interesting. And in those rooms, interest is never the same as respect. They praised her presence, but mocked her background. They wore jewels while she carried hunger in her memory. She listened to conversations about wealth like it was destiny. She watched women smile politely while their bodies were trapped in corsets that made breathing look like luxury. Coco didn't admire them. She studied them because she knew something they didn't. Privilege makes people blind, and blind people don't see when the world is changing. She began designing hats first: simple, clean, sharp, no excessive feathers, no heavy decoration, no screaming status. The style looked almost empty, and that emptiness felt radical, because it wasn't made to impress, it was made to move. The rich women noticed, not because they understood her pain, but because her designs made them look powerful without looking desperate. And power is addictive. Chanel grew slowly at first, a small shop, a quiet name, a woman building in a world that expected women to decorate, not to lead. But Coco wasn't trying to decorate society. She was trying to rewrite it. And with every piece she created, she was doing something deeper than fashion. She was erasing the line between who was allowed to be seen and who was meant to stay invisible. Success didn't protect her, it exposed her. Once her style became desirable, others began to copy it. Not inspired by her, not crediting her, stealing it. They took the simplicity, they took the cuts. They took the idea that elegance could be minimal and called it their own. Because the world didn't expect a woman from nowhere to own anything, especially not influence. She watched competitors profit from what she created, watched society praise new trends without mentioning the orphan who built them. And she understood something cold: if you don't defend your name, they erase it. So she fought, not with screaming, with control. She turned her identity into a brand. She attached her name to everything, not for vanity, but for survival. Chanel wasn't just a label. It was a warning, a statement that said, I exist, I built this, and you will not rewrite my story. She designed clothing that freed women's bodies, not to please men, but to give women movement. And movement became rebellion. The world didn't call her kind, it called her difficult. But difficult is what society calls women who refuse to be owned. She was criticized, judged, rejected in new ways, but she had already survived rejection in its purest form, as a child with no family and no place in the world. Compared to that, high society's hatred was nothing, and the more they tried to erase her, the more permanent she became. Coco Chanel didn't build Chanel because she loved fashion. She built it because she hated her place in the world. She hated being treated as disposable, hated being treated as temporary, hated the way society erased women the moment they stopped being useful. So she became impossible to erase, not by being liked, but by being unforgettable. Her style didn't scream wealth, it whispered power, clean lines, black and white, minimal design that felt sharp enough to cut through class. She didn't ask permission to belong, she forced belonging into existence. And that is why her brand lasted, because it wasn't built on trends, it was built on a woman who refused to be reduced to her childhood, her gender, or her social rank. They tried to dismiss her as a poor girl. She became a global symbol. They tried to copy her work. She made her name louder than the copies. They tried to erase her story. She turned her story into legacy. Coco Chanel didn't win because the world finally accepted her. She won because she never waited for acceptance. She built herself into history before history had a chance to forget her. Some people don't become legends because the world supports them. They become legends because the world tries to erase them and fails.